Good morning and afternoon to everybody that's already on the call. We'll just wait another minute here to let people log in. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay out there. Okay, as people still join, that's okay. We'll get started here. So good morning or afternoon, depending where you are, and welcome to a collaborative presentation on Corteva fungicides and the Adavelt Advantage, featuring Adavelt Active, of course, and Zetigo PRM that's powered by Adavelt. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today and also let you know that there will be CCA credits available for this session with a QR code near the end of the hour. And there will also be time at the end of this presentation to ask questions, but feel free to drop them into the Q&A throughout the presentation. Next. So this presentation is going to consist of 3 parts. First up, myself, Laura-Lee Yaboa. Nice to meet you. I will be hosting from Calgary, Alberta, and I am the Fungicide Portfolio Marketing Manager, and I will be discussing Corteva Canada and our fungicide portfolio. Then Global Product Manager Philip Joust joins us all the way from Indianapolis, USA, and he'll be explaining the discovery of Adavelt Active and what Adavelt means to Western Canadian farmers. While Nicole Phillip is our commercial launch specialist, locally situated in Regina, Sask, and she'll be bringing us a technical overview of Zetigo PRM and best practices. Next. So as I said, my name is Laura-Lee, and I'm from a small farming community. Some might know it, Tisdale, Saskatchewan. And I've had the pleasure to be part of Corteva and Legacy Dow Agrisciences for about 17 years now. And I've spent time in many roles over the years, but now responsible for the fungicide business across Canada. So looking at Corteva Canada, we are proud to be celebrating its 5th year anniversary this year. Although we do carry a long legacy from our heritage companies, Dow, DuPont, and Pioneer, here's what we look like in Canada 5 years in. So we're an integrated technology company focused on agriculture with 2 segments, crop protection and seed. And we're pleased to have over 700 employees across the company, 3 production facilities, and an incredible R&D footprint with 11 sites that allow us to do local testing to ensure our world-class products work in this country. So then, next, thank you. This is the highlight reel. I'll wait for that to change for you guys here. I think there's just a slight delay in some of the slides. There we go. So this is the highlight reel for Corteva in the last 5 years. We brought 266 seed hybrids to Canada, 4 new seed traits, 23 products, and 3 active ingredients that were launched globally and within Canada. And then on the next slide, this gives us an example of all the new technology that we've brought to farmers since the inception of Corteva 5 years ago. But we're not done there. Next slide. Here's what you can expect over the next few years coming out of the pipeline. We've got 2 to 3 new cereal hybrids, a new T3 fungicide, new FST, new IST, and all of this is in the pipeline coming out the next few years. Really hoping to bring a lot of value to farmers. So next slide. But what do we got today? So the current Corteva fungicide portfolio consists of Viatude canola fungicide. It's a multi-mode of action product containing a unique combination of two of the strongest sclerotinia controlling actives on the market today. And the results from this in the first few years that we've had the product in the marketplace have been just outstanding. We are thrilled to have an option for our Corteva canola growers as well. Acapella also fits with canola and cereals, as well as several other crops. And that one's been a trusted fungicide that gets the job done while supporting plant health. And then following up there is Zetigo PRM, and that is our newest fungicide for use in pulse crops. And it offers a dual mode of action powered by the newest active in the market that hasn't seen any new actives for decades. So bringing a new powerful option like Zetigo to our pulse farmers is pretty exciting, but we will definitely get into that a little more later on. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share some market data. We get market data from Ag Data, and this is from the 2024 fungicide market. Next slide. Perfect, thank you. So here's the big fungicide picture, and I want to emphasize the importance and opportunity of this mass market. With over 30 million acres and worth about $640 million, there is definitely opportunity in the fungicides for Western Canada. Saskatchewan holds a majority of treated acres with about 54% of fungicide acres, while Alberta and Manitoba are around half of those acres with about 22 to 23% treated acres. If you'll click one more time there, Lindsay. So the majority crops are cereals by a landslide with 16 million acres, and canola had 6.5 million, and pulse crops take another 6.3 million acres in Canada. So that's just an overview, and then thank you. This is once we've known the majority crops, so that's in the bottom left there just from the other slide. But what this can show is an interesting look at understanding the diseases that were actually sprayed for in those crops and some of their trends. So for example, you can see Fusarium at the top there is the #1 disease sprayed for in Western Canada, and it's increasing year over year. Sclerotinia, on the other hand, is the second most sprayed for disease, and it fluctuates year to year. But that's more sprayed for than, say, the leaf diseases in cereals. And Ascochyta is sprayed for the most often in pulses as a whole. So just a quick look at some of the data we're seeing there. We'll go forward, thank you. So on the same kind of thinking, this is just a glimpse into some of the market research we get. And predominantly, I want to talk about the impact that retails have on recommendations. Thank you. So this market research chart is from a pulse fungicide focused study done across Western Canada. This particular slide showcases the impact and importance of retail recommendations on farmers choosing to use product brands. For example, in 2024, so the bottom there, 41% of strong brand recommendations resulted in brands being used by customers, and only 22% over in the orange side of farmers used a brand that was not recommended by their retail. So this is a good example of the importance and weight that retail recommendations hold. And we hope that our partnership can help set you guys up for success in understanding new technology and products in the market and new actives for farmers' use. You make a real difference, and the numbers here really prove it. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this slide with you because it really shows where retails have the most impact across different demographics. And now this was still from the fungicide market research, and it's split out by provinces. So you can see where Manitoba retails have the strongest influence on decisions. But in soil zones, the black seems to have a slight higher influence. In pulse acres or farm size, the larger farms were more strongly influenced by their retail relationships. And if you look at decision-making segments at the bottom there, farmers who were making their decisions based on healthy plants at any cost was much more influenced than farmers that decided based purely on agronomics or return on investment. So that's just a little glimpse there. This slide, the relevance of this slide is to explain what a net promoter score is. It'll be useful for the next slide I'm about to share. But just to level set, simply put, net promoter score is a willingness for a farmer to recommend a product they've used to their friend or colleagues. It's calculated based on promoters minus detractors or folks that don't want to recommend a product. Next. And that's important to kind of have in your mind for this slide. So knowing that helps us interpret the bottom of this chart where you can see Zetigo. It has a whopping 40 net promoter score, and it's by far the highest promoted score for the listed competitor Pulse products. I know we did have a limited amount of product out in 2024, but what this tells us is that farmers who did try Zetigo recommend it and would highly promote it rather than even the closest runner-up. So I have to say this graph made us pretty proud, and it might be a little bit of a shameless plug, but Zetigo did well here. Next, please. Thanks. But really, I am truly thrilled to speak on behalf of Zetigo PRM because it is such a new tool for Canadian pulse farmers. It is the only innovation and the only Group 21 available to farmers, and that makes Adavelt really special. And that leads me right nicely into Phil Joust's presentation on the story of Adavelt. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Laura Lee. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. So, yeah, my name is Phil Joust. I'm located here in Indianapolis. Have been with Corteva for 19 years, or going on my 19th year now. Originally came into the company in a couple different roles. Worked in cottonseed, was in the R&D group for a while, and have had various sales leadership roles, and have been doing this role with Adavelt for the past 5 years. And it's really exciting because I came into this role in 2020. We had not yet launched Adavelt, and so was really building the business cases and getting ready to launch this product globally. And you all have the distinction of being the actual first country where we have made a significant launch with Zetigo PRM, and really appreciate all the work that you all have done to help us be successful with this, and looking forward to the future. What I want to do is go kind of back and tell you a little bit about Corteva and how we think about bringing products to market, and what we've done in the past, and then how Corteva, or how Adavelt fits into Corteva's future going into the next several years. And we have this slide here. It's kind of your canned corporate presentation, but really, if I could leave you with anything from this slide, is that Corteva is dedicated to the farmer. We're dedicated to the retailer. We're dedicated to crop protection. And when we think about things like Adavelt and other things in our pipeline, we want to help you and the farmer be successful and bring innovations and technology that help them in their future, in their investments. Okay, next slide. So if you think about it in terms of a couple maybe numbers or kind of the direction of the company, we want to expand our leadership and be a part of sustainable crop protection. We're going to increase our strength in doing that by bringing differentiated things like Adavelt. And then we're going to continue to invest for growth in things like digital decision science, biologicals. You hear a lot about that from Corteva for over the next couple of years. So those are kind of our directions. And how we're going to win in crop protection is basically helping you all and the farmer to win. And that's by increasing yield protection, bringing sustainable crop solutions, keeping our eye on what actually makes the farmer successful. And by 2035, our pipeline, we're projected to launch $9 billion worth of crop protection products with 10 new AIs by 2035. So that's pretty exciting. A lot of new things coming. And what we're going to talk most about today is Adavelt, which is part of that $1 billion franchise we see coming in our natural and naturally inspired products. And I'll show you how Adavelt fits into that here in just a minute. A couple other things before I leave this slide, just to have in your mind. Corteva invests $4 million a day into R&D. It's kind of our running average. Since 2019, we have invested $6 billion into R&D, which is about 8% of our annual sales. So we're invested into the future. Crop protection is going to be a big part of that. Okay, next slide. And crop protection, again, is a big part of it, but it's a piece of it. You can see here, seed, biologicals, decision science, regulatory. All of these things are categories that we're going to invest in and grow, along with the intellectual property that comes with that. But if you look across everything we have, I mentioned crop protection being 9 billion of launches by 2035. We've got 24 billion in the entire pipeline. So again, I think partnering with Corteva hopefully will set you up for success in the future, and we want to be a part of your success as well. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about Adavelt. And the first line up there is Corteva Agriscience introduces Adavelt Active, a naturally inspired solution for challenging Ascomycetes. Um, Really, what I'm going to focus on throughout this is try to impress upon you what is new and different about Adavelt. In that Adavelt is the first ever picolinamide fungicide for use across a wide range of crops. So picolinamides are something Corteva's been working with for a while, and you can see on this slide on the left, Inatrek. That was our very first picolinamide fungicide, and these are, we developed this by first discovering fenpicoxamid or Inatrek in soil, and then we developed it, and it primarily is effective in the cereals crop in Europe for septoria. That's its main target. But interestingly enough, it also is effective against black sigatoka and bananas. But once we had Inatrek, then we made a few modifications and we made a fully synthetic active ingredient called Adavelt. And we call this our second generation picolinamide. And you can see here citrus, pulses, as you're well aware of here in Canada, grapes, melons, cereals, cotton. It's a huge list of crops that Adavelt is effective on. And it's a broad spectrum Ascomycete control. And then, so I'll go into more detail on that in just a second. But we actually have a third generation as well that we're getting ready to launch in Brazil, where we made a few extra tweaks to this chemistry, and now we have a top soybean rust fungicide that we'll be launching in late 26, early 27 down in Brazil. So what makes Adavelt different is really there's three things I want you to think about. One is this novel mode of action or this new target site of action. So Adavelt is a group 21 fungicide, that FRAC group 21. That's not necessarily unique, right? There's a couple other group 21 fungicides out there, but the other ones work on a different class of diseases. They work on oomycetes. Adavelt works on ascomycetes. So the way to think about it is ascomycetes have really never seen a group 21. So we're bringing something new and different there. So that's going to make it an excellent rotation partner for disease management, resistance management, and we'll talk about that too. Um, it's going to be effective at, go back up one time, sorry. Okay. It's going to be effective at low use rates. I'll talk about the preventative and curative action. And then I think should show you here in a little bit broad spectrum control as well, which is really exciting. The number of diseases that Adavelt can control. Okay. So the key features, if you think about kind of what Adavelt does, the key features are going to be that broad spectrum control against a wide number of diseases, um, outstanding performance, which I think some growers experienced this past year, the novel target site of action. I'll show you what that means here in a minute. Therefore, it's going to provide a flexible tool for disease management. It's going to be a resistance management tool. And then because of our formulation technology, should be very compatible in a wide range of tank mixtures. So bringing something with a lot of utility and a lot of unique attributes. Okay. So, what we're wanting to do with Adavelt is bring naturally inspired products that bring, solutions to farmers worldwide. And we want to be able to preserve that innovation tool. So, not only do we want to talk about the efficacy of Adavelt, but also talk about how we manage it in an overall program to maintain its efficacy for the long term. Okay. So what is going on in the market is that there's really three classes of chemistry that are very, very widely used across almost all crops, and that's the triazoles, the strobes, and the SDHIs. And what we're seeing with all three of these is either reduced sensitivity or outright resistance that's developing. Along with the reduced sensitivity, the triazoles in particular, while being incredibly valuable tools and still very widely used around the world, they are also some of the older chemistries are facing regulatory phase out. This is particularly, we're seeing this in Europe, but it could develop other places as well. But so bringing something that is a complement to triazoles, help manage where we see reduced sensitivity, we think Adavelt brings a true advantage. Same things with strobilurins and SDHIs. We see the resistance in various crops and diseases, and because of Adavelt's different target site of action, will be a great tool to help manage some of that. So next slide. So to sum that up on the target site of action and the novel mode of action, where diseases are resistant to SDHIs, strobes, or losing some susceptibility to the triazoles, Adavelt will be a solution to help manage that. And because of this, I mentioned earlier that Adavelt is in that group 21, and because of it binds to a completely different site in the mitochondria than does any other mode of action. And I'm going to show a pretty cool pictogram of that here in a minute. But if you could remember that, I think that's the key thing I want you to know about how Adavelt works. And because of that, it's going to redefine our fungicide programs and really help to strengthen those programs where we see resistance developing. All right. So a bit of a busy chart, but I think I can explain it pretty simply to drive home the point, which is no cross resistance. So this is some data gathered out of Europe on known resistant septoria strains. So in each column, you see various size bubbles. Well, each one of those columns represents a strain or an isolate of septoria that is either resistant to a triazole, an SDHI, or a strobilurin. And the size of the bubble means that that's the greater level of resistance that particular strain exhibits against that class of chemistry. And across the top in purple, you can see Adavelt active with the very small bubbles. So what that's telling us is that even in strains of disease where we know resistance exists, we can bring Adavelt in and there's no cross resistance. That just because it's resistant to one class of chemistry, that does not confer any level of resistance to Adavelt. So we truly have something that can help break resistance going forward. Okay. So I mentioned I wanted to talk about where Adavelt works. So we call Adavelt a QII, a quinone inside inhibitor. What that means is that in the mitochondria, strobulurins, SDHIs, these other chemistries, they interact in the mitochondria of the disease, but they interact either in the middle of the membrane or the outside of the interior membrane, where Adavelt comes in on the inside of that membrane. And that's why we say it has a very distinct or unique site of action. And there's no other chemistry works in that location. And that's why we're able to claim no cross resistance and to be able to really help with the resistance management with this chemistry. Okay. So as I mentioned, not only do we want to bring something new and different, but we want to be able to manage this product and keep it effective for a long time. So because of that, what you'll hear, and Nicole will talk about this in a little while, is we want to integrate Adavelt into a robust spray program. We don't want to replace an entire spray program. We want Adavelt to be part of it. And we want to use it under protective conditions, where we want to put the best way to use Adavelt is before the disease appears and be in a preventative type situation. And we want it to be part of an overall integrated pest management program. So not, just not relying solely on chemical control and definitely not solely on Adavelt. And then of course, always use it according to label recommendations. So that's our kind of big picture sense. And if we do that, we think that you will experience very effective activity from Adavelt against a lot of different diseases. It's effective by preventing spore germination. and also, as I'll show you, can exhibit a certain level of curative activity, so which is really unique and I think special with Adavelt, um, and can kind of give you a little bit of flexibility in how you use the product, but we still always want to really target that protectant application um, as a best practice. So to describe this a little bit more in detail, again, I'm going to go back to septoria as that's a lab-friendly disease that helps us demonstrate a lot of neat things with Adavelt. But over here on the left is a petri dish that contains septoria that we inoculated we inoculated it in the lab and let it grow for 3 days. Over on the right, we put Adavelt out on this petri dish 1 day before we infected it with septoria. And you can see the difference in the growth of the disease by that preventative application. So this is really where we want to lean with Adavelt. This is how we want to use it. Okay. But we also want to understand what happens in a inevitably a curative situation when we know we can't spray every single field at the exact right time, and there can be some infection that occurs before we get out there. So over on the left here, we see the same disease, septoria, that uh, has been allowed to grow for 14 days. Over on the right, what we did is we infected the petri dish with septoria, let it grow for 7 days, and then applied the Adavelt. So what happens is you can still see that the septoria growth occurred, but not near to the level as it does with 14 days untreated. And so what's going on there is that basically Adavelt has a bit of reach back activity, and in fact it prohibits reinfestation. So the disease may grow a little bit, but because of the preventative activity of Adavelt in that curative situation, it doesn't allow that disease to establish and really take off. But again, this is informative. Wanted you to see this, but still we stand behind the positioning that we really want this preventative application more than anything else. As far as formulation goes, we spent a lot of time and effort to build robust formulations to allow you to be able to tank mix with the things you need to solve other problems that are going on in the field at the same time. So we think you will experience some good things there from Adavelt in terms of being able to mix other products with it when you make applications. Okay. So our initial markets, really, Canada was our first market, but what you'll start to see over time is Adavelt's going to be released and used in fruits and nuts, fruiting vegetables, cucurbits, cotton, cereals, fruits and berries, in a wide range of crops. And the way we talk about it is that it's a truly a global molecule that's going to be used in a huge number of crops. Okay, next slide. And as I mentioned, also a huge number of diseases: alternaria, black sigatoka, powdery mildew, septoria, botrytis, uh, you know, anthracnose, just any number of different diseases. So it's very effective. And another thing that's pretty interesting, again, about Adavelt is because of this wide spectrum of diseases that it controls, and some of these are very important post harvest, particularly botrytis. You can see here in strawberries, chilies, and grapes that we can actually increase the harvestability of a crop by applying Adavelt later in the season, and we've got some extended control of some of these diseases that damage crops post harvest. So that's another pretty exciting thing we get to see with Adavelt going forward. So with that, I hope that made sense and gave you a bit of some background into Adavelt big picture and where it fits, and hopefully where we see Canada fitting into this, with this product. And if I can leave you with anything, it's a novel mode of action with great performance and flexibility, with a broad spectrum, providing a broad spectrum solution. So look forward to any questions you might have, and certainly hope you have a great experience with the product in the coming years. With that, I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Phil, for that overview on Adavelt Active. Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole. I work in crop protection marketing. I'm a commercial launch specialist, which means I get the privilege of working with products prior to launch to make sure that our sales teams and our retails and our customers are ready to use some of these new innovations that Corteva is bringing to the market. I've been in marketing for a couple of years now, but I spent a number of years in the field as an agronomist and still consider myself an agronomist at heart. So I wanted to spend just a little bit of time today talking about Zetigo PRM. This is the first product in Canada that has the Adavelt Active. For those of you that are familiar with it, you'll know that we have been working with it in the field for a number of years here in Western Canada specifically, not only at a field scale level with farmers for the past couple of years, but in small plot trials prior to that as well. And we received full crop and disease registration on this just in time for fungicide season last year in about June of 2024. So if there's three takeaways when we're talking about Zetigo PRM, these are probably the three things that I want you all to remember. So at a high level, Zetigo PRM is a novel premix for Western Canadian pulse growers. That premix includes a brand new mode of action. And so when we're talking about Zetigo PRM, it does contain 2 premium active ingredients with complementary modes of action against leaf diseases in pulses. And what's really exciting about this, and honestly happens about once in a career if we're lucky, is it'll offer growers that brand new Group 21 mode of action. And that's really going to help farmers manage pathogen resistance while preserving all the other active ingredients that we rely on, not only in pulse crops, but also in all the other crops that we grow here in Western Canada. And it's really going to be a nice option for an effective fungicide rotation. The second thing to remember is Zetigo PRM is going to offer broad spectrum preventative protection. You've heard it a couple times and you'll probably hear it a couple more. But we want to make sure that we're using Zetigo PRM as a preventative leaf disease control product for pulse crops. This is a solid recommendation for almost any leaf disease product that we're using on the market, just to maximize the efficacy against those diseases that we're protecting our crops from. And really, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're protecting crop quality and any marketability and making sure that our farmer customers are maximizing yield potential and ROI. And the last thing I'd like you all to remember, sorry if you could just go back, Lindsay, is excellent performance and better coverage. So Zetigo PRM is going to offer a high level of field performance against common leaf diseases and pulse crops. I'll show you some data a little bit later on. But Zetigo PRM also has systemic properties, and that's really beneficial so that Zetigo PRM is going to deliver complete coverage and protection for those crops against all of those leaf diseases. So I did mention that we got full label registration, I think it was in June of 2024 last year. And so what that looks like today is we've got registration in field peas for anthracnose, Mycosphaerella blight, Ascochyta blight, and powdery mildew. In lentils, we're controlling anthracnose and Ascochyta blight. In chickpeas, we're controlling Ascochyta blight and powdery mildew. And we actually have registration on faba beans. If there's any faba bean enthusiasts on here, we do a really nice job of controlling chocolate spot. And if you remember that picture of strawberries that Phil showed earlier, this is a really crackerjack product on chocolate spot and faba beans. But this is the full label and full crop label that we've got here in Western Canada. When we talk about application timing for Zetigo PRM, we do want to make sure that, again, we're applying as a preventative fungicide application, and we want to make sure that we're applying before the onset of disease. So typically in our pulse crops, this is going to be at early flower timing, but we really want to make sure that that application is happening just prior to row or canopy closure. For the 3 pulse crops, sorry, I don't have one for faba beans, but for lentils, chickpeas, and peas, this is what that looks like. That R1 is kind of highlighted there. And so we just want to make sure that we are positioning this with our customers to get it on prior to disease onset for the highest efficacy for those customers. Just a couple of best practices here. So the rate of Zetigo PRM is going to be 324 mils per acre. A case is going to do 60 acres. When we talk about efficacy, we did talk about good spray coverage and canopy penetration. That's another one of the reasons that we want to make sure we're going in prior to row closure. We really just want to make sure that we're doing a good job of getting Zetigo PRM to cover as much of that plant, as much of that crop as possible. And so this is a ground-only product for ground application only. And when we're talking about water volume, we can actually go to the higher end and get our customers to use that 15 gallons per acre, especially if we're using this on a really dense pea crop. That 15 gallons per acre is really just going to give you peace of mind that we've done the best job possible, that we're covering that crop and getting Zetigo PRM really well into that canopy. And you can see what good coverage is going to do in this picture here. This is from 2022 in southern Saskatchewan. I want to say it was around Briarcrest. And you can see that Zetigo PRM is just doing a really nice job of fending off disease and keeping that crop really, really healthy, especially when we take a look at it compared to the untreated check, but also to the competitor. Sorry, Lindsay, if you can go back. Boom height, just want to make sure that we're at 20 to 24 inches above the crop canopy. In terms of droplet size, medium to coarse droplet size for thorough coverage is what we recommend. And we do have a pre-harvest interval of 30 days with Zetigo PRM. I did want to share a little bit of field efficacy data with you all. Again, we've been working with this in the field with farmers for a number of years now, having full registration. So I'm going to share some data from 2024. We've seen this product for a number of years against a number of competitors, and we are very happy with the performance that we're offering farmers here in Western Canada. We've put it up against Delaro Complete, against Diax, against Moravis Neo, a number of competitors on the market. And not only are we very confident in the efficacy and the yield that it's going to provide farmers, but we're doing this at the same time as we're introducing that brand new mode of action. So this is a really, really winning concept for Western Canadian pulse growers. If you go to the next slide, we'll take a look at peas. Again, we've put it up against a number of competitors that have been available in the market for a number of years, and field efficacy in terms of yield is just as good as anything on the market, and also in chickpeas. If you want to go to the next slide. This is a really nice fit for chickpeas. We do want to make sure that this is, for any pulse crop, that this is going to be our first application. If you're doing a multi-fungicide application, we do want to make sure that Zetigo PRM is that first app. We are controlling those leaf diseases. And so, especially in something like chickpeas where there's multiple applications in a year, having Zetigo PRM as that first application is really a nice option across all those pulse crops. And we did talk about resistance management specific to Adavelt Active, and so we wanted to hone in on that a little bit for Zetigo PRM as well. There's been some lessons over the past couple of years regarding fungicides, and so we want to make sure that we are keeping Adavelt Active and Zetigo PRM as an option for pulse growers for as long as possible. And so with that being said, we want to apply Zetigo PRM only one time per crop season. It should always be used in rotation with other fungicides that have other fungicide groups in it. Again, we want to make sure that Zetigo PRM is used as a preventative first application leaf disease controlling product. And we also want to make sure that we're really helping our customers use these fungicides as part of an integrated pest management strategy. So things like crop rotation are going to come into play, and really just making sure that we're looking at this as a whole system when it comes to managing disease. And as always, we want to make sure that we're following the label recommendations for resistance management. So that's everything that I wanted to cover on Zetigo PRM. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. That was great. And thanks, Phil. Wealth of knowledge from both you guys. So now to kind of wrap us up and talk about some of the final pieces here, we'll just switch to the next slide, Lindsay. There are assets available to bring value to farmers purchasing fungicides as part of their crop input planning with Corteva. Both Zetigo PRM and Viatude are included in the Flex Plus rewards, as well as Viatude in the Optimum Gly offer for 2025. So just a little note there. And if you'd like more information on programming, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local territory manager. Next slide there. And new with Zetigo's full expanded label, we did develop a tech sheet that's available online on the Zetigo PRM webpage. So if you go there, you can look at assets and download this for a quick technical information guide on all the crops and diseases and some of the stuff that Nicole brought us through. That being said, we also have more information like this available online, of course, at the corteva.ca website. We've got our hard copy field guides that I'm sure you're familiar with, and also available on your phone with the Corteva Field Guide app, and always your local Corteva territory managers. With that being said, thank you again to everybody that participated and joined us today, and a special thanks to the team that made this info session possible as well. And as promised, we click to the next here. We do appreciate you spending your time with us this morning or afternoon. And we made sure to include the CCA credits in return. So please scan that QR code through your CCA app on your mobile device and you'll receive your CEUs immediately. So just a note that once you've scanned, the app will automatically sign you in. You don't have to do it again. Now, if there are any further questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A and we can work through those. And otherwise, thank you very much.
We do have one here in the Q&A, and I'll field this to Nicole. The question is, in chickpea, how long after Zetigo PRM should we follow with another application of another product?
I would say overall it's going to depend on the level of disease pressure and the conditions that you're sort of dealing with. But I mean, you're doing multiple fungicides application in any given year. I would say, depending on conditions, you could probably go upwards of a week. But it really is going to be condition and year dependent.
I can also note that this session has been recorded, and I think everyone that's logged in today should be able to find the recording sent out afterwards. Okay, well, we must have given you guys a lot of information and pretty clearly, because it doesn't look like there's too many questions flowing in. Again, thanks everybody for your time today. And if you need anything or any more information, just reach out, feel free. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Phil. Everyone have a lovely week. Thanks for stopping in. Take care.